have found it hard to listen to someone in charge of you?
I say, okay, I'll do it.
That is a bold-faced lie. As I was growing up, I remember thinking to myself, when my dad would yell at me, I remember going, and then he would whack me one when he'd see it, but still. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about respect. Have you ever had a hard time respecting someone in authority that you may think might not have known as much as you?
Like
Coaches?
I need to have a lot of leniency.
But I remember working there, and I was a really good worker. So I was working in ceilings, and the guy that was the supervisor of ceilings wasn't really the sharpest tool in the deluxe home shed. He was constantly making things backwards and constantly reading blueprints wrong, but he was telling me what to do, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah, okay, you're an idiot. I didn't say that to him because I didn't want to get fired, but it was really hard for me to accept direction from him because I didn't believe that he was smarter than me. We were putting together this ceiling and we were putting an access panel in, and he was telling me where to place, it basically tells you where to build what and where to put what. And I remember thinking, oh, again, he's going to do it wrong, and I'm going to have to go up the line, I'm going to have to fix it. And so I was like, yo, are you sure you're doing this right? One of the things looking back on that moment, I thought that I knew more than this guy who's been doing it for 25 years, and I've only been doing it for a couple of years. And obviously the guy had made some mistakes. We all make mistakes in life, and if people judge us by the mistakes that we make, no one will ever have respect for us for overcoming the mistakes that we have made. But you know what? It's really easy for us sometimes to look at people that are in, I don't want to say in power over us, but who have authority over us, or who are supposed to be leading us and guiding us. It's really easy to look at them and think, yeah, maybe I know a little more than they do, and that's not the case. Or maybe it is the case. Maybe all the other times except for that one time, I knew the man was doing it wrong, but in order for us to sometimes move forward in our life, we have to be respectful to those that are leading us to our next path. Before we read the chapter, we're going to get some backstory from this guy. It says, God never intended for Israel to have a king, but after they begged for one, he relented, and King Saul was chosen by God to lead his people. Things did not end up going well, and eventually God appointed Saul's replacement, a shepherd named David, which we all know that. So basically, Israel was like, God, we need somebody to rule over us, which really? God was like, let me make you independent, and they're like, no, we're so confused. We need somebody to rule over us. It's like me. It's like me saying, okay, I want to be a slave. It's why would they do that? So God's like, okay, if you guys can't handle being free, I'm gonna throw somebody up that's gonna take you all over the place. Oh, and since you need a ruler, your rulers are really gonna drag you down.
Oh, welcome now.
Welcome to having a ruler. So eventually King Saul screwed up, right? And he's like, I am the king, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and I'm going to worship this God, I'm going to believe in this thing, and I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to do whatever I want. So God was like, okay, guess what? You're done. David's out here with his sheep, and he killed a lion, and he killed a bear, and this dude's gangster. So God's like, yeah, this is definitely going to be the next king. It would be a ton of years before David would become king. And in that time, Saul went from being David's caregiver to trying to kill David. Why do you think Saul tried to kill David?
Because he wanted to be king again.
Right. Because Saul knew David was appointed to be king. And Saul was like, well, these people said they needed a ruler, and God made me the ruler. And who's David think he is? I think he's appointed by God.
He ran across the field.
Well, there's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of stories. There really is like a whole long Bible book on this. And there's so many things that happened. We're going to crunch it down to just a couple one. So David was forced to live on the run because Saul knew that God wanted David to be king over Israel. So Saul one day goes into the cave knowing that David is hiding in this cave. Saul is in this cave where David is looking like a mountain man. And he's like, I'm trying to kill David because I don't want David to be the ruler, basically. And basically, David is kind of, at this point in time, Israel is kind of divided. Half of them want to serve Saul, and the other half are following David, and it's just a big mess. So anyway, so all of David's friends are like, dude, now's your chance to kill Saul. We're going to murder him. And David's like, no.
I'm sorry today.
I'm not going to kill Saul. So that leads us to the portion of Scripture that we're going to talk about today. So now that my very animated version of David and Saul has happened, somebody get your Bible or your phone out and look up this portion of Scripture. 1 Samuel 24, 8 through 10.
David came out and shouted after him, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked around, David bowed low before him. Then he shouted to Saul, "Why do you listen to the people who say, 'I am trying to harm you'? This very day you can see with your own eyes it isn't true, for the Lord placed you at my mercy back there in the cave. Some of my men told me to kill you, but I spared you, for I said, 'I will never harm the king. He is the Lord's anointed one.'"
Okay, so all of them scriptures were basically David saying, Saul, listen to me. You're listening to everybody else say that I want to hurt you. I had the chance to hurt you, but I didn't. Because I had said, I will not lay my hand on my Lord, because he is the Lord's anointed one. David recognized that Saul, even though Saul was trying to kill him, and Saul was a complete goofball at this point, David still knew that he needed to show Saul the respect that Saul deserved for still being the original anointed man of God to rule over Israel. Even though David knew Saul was wrong, he knew that he could not kill him because he had to give him the respect that he deserved for being king. So as we're going through life today, we're going to have all kinds of dreams, aspirations. We're going to have all kinds of ambitions, and we're going to have people that are going to be in charge of us to help us reach those goals. Always remember that respect is something that you must give to those people in authority. I don't care if it's your mother, your father, or your boss, or whoever it is. If they are ahead of you, then they got there somehow. All that to say is this, is if if David, who wasn't the king at the time, can show respect to Saul, and Saul was trying to kill him, then who are us not to show respect to those in charge of what we are doing? It was not my place back then to disrespect my supervisor by telling him, no, I'm not going to do this. Because even though I might not have agreed with him doing it, he was still the boss. If you disagree, as we get older, we become adults, young adults, which I believe that the majority of you are. There are respectful ways to disagree with those ahead of you. It's called communication. Communication is very important as you get older, especially when you're working with people in authority over you. What I should have done was I should have said, hey, listen, I don't necessarily agree with what you're doing. Can we look at the blueprints together so you can show me what I'm doing wrong or what's going on? Because there's got to be a reason why I'm fixing them all the time. That would have been a respectful way of doing it, as opposed to just saying, no, you're an idiot. Okay? I can think of other aspects where, I've communicated to bosses that I didn't agree with what they were doing in a respectful manner, and we were able to I either did it their way anyway because they were still my boss, or we were able to come up with a compromise. As you're going through life, even with your parents, as you're getting older, you know what? Not to sound cliche, but if you want your parents to treat you as adults, communicate with them as adults. Are you going to get your way? Probably not most of the time. But you know what? Your parents will also have a new respect for you for the respect you have for them. If you respect them enough to say, hey mom, hey dad, can we sit down and discuss this? And even if you know it's not going to go your way, do it anyway. That way they know that you are growing up. But in order for you to show respect instead of disrespect, communication is a part of what you have to do. Even Jesus talked to the disciples. When the disciple cut the guy's ear off, Jesus didn't walk over and be like, ah! No, he walked over and was like, yo, you can't cut the guy's ear off. That's not what we're here to do.
That's not right.
It's not what we do.
Fired.
Come on now. He even had a discussion with the possessed man on the beach. He had a discussion with the demons. Communication is what Jesus did. Now, we need to have the same thing. We need to be able to communicate with each other as adults and say, hey, listen, you know what? This isn't right or this isn't right. If we can't do that as adults, then we're not showing each other the respect that we deserve. If you're not doing that with your parents, if you're not respecting your parents enough to sit down and communicate with them, hey, I'm feeling this way or I'm feeling that way, whether it's going to go your way or not your way, then you're not really showing them the respect that they deserve as your parent. If you're working for a boss and you don't agree with what he's doing or how things are going, it's your job to be respectful enough to say, hey, listen, can we sit down and have a conversation as adults? If he says no, what are you going to do? King Saul wanted to kill David, and David was like, okay, let's talk about this. People said I want to kill you. Clearly I don't. What can we do about it? Obviously one of us doesn't have to die today. It's about showing respect for those around you, as well as those in authority over you. Does that make sense? It does. It makes sense.
When you're
The lesson's over. You can stop.